Greetings. My name is Pat Murphy. I'm a botanist plant ecologist who's lived in Boulder for almost 45 years. I've been following the municipalization issue, and the question on the screen is the question that I think is best evaluated when you review some of the information I'm about to present. The online documents by City of Boulder are filled with guesses and estimates and waffle words. Knowing the facts is not really possible because I believe we are presented with unprovable and untestable guesses. This presentation looks at the big picture rather than the unknowable. The big picture goal is a reduced carbon footprint. So what is the best case outcome of municipalization in Boulder? When Boulder acts alone, there really are no significant results, even with the best case outcome. Boulder uses that little slice of pie that you see there, about 3.4% of the generated electricity in the state of Colorado. So the large red area is all the rest of Colorado. Boulder hopes to achieve about 30% to about 50% renewables. So the net change to the Colorado power usage would be about 1% to 1.7%, statistically non-significant. What if we compare what Boulder hopes to accomplish with what Xcel is doing already today? Xcel already has 19.5% renewables compared to Boulder's hoped for 1% to 1.7% contribution to Colorado electricity sourcing. So let's compare Boulder's 20-year plan to manage 3.4% of the Colorado electric usage to Xcel's plan to manage 100%. But before we do that, let's look at what the breakdown of Xcel's energy renewable sources are. There's mostly wind, some hydro, small fraction of solar, and an even tinier fraction of biomass. And do note that natural gas is 22.8%, and there is indeed a large coal component approaching 60%. But let's look at what the 20-year plan is for both Xcel and Boulder. So what I have here are both Xcel Energy's plan as well as Boulder's plan for the next 20 years. Xcel's 20-year plan is at the top and Boulder's is on the bottom. And you can find the reference for these at the bottom of the slide. Note that Xcel is reducing its coal use, increasing its natural gas use, and has an approximately stable percent of renewables. Certainly room for improvement here. Boulder will continue to use coal, increase then decrease, then increase natural gas use, and increase wind. So the large reliance for Boulder in the future is going to be natural gas and wind. And note their solar is about 3%, maybe 5 to 3%, and Xcel's is about 3%. So when it comes to solar, neither one of them is really very conscious or willing to commit to solar. So let me enumerate 3 bad ideas of Boulder's municipalization effort. Bad idea 1. So instead of remote coal mine disturbances and power plant emissions that can be easily measured and, if necessary, controlled, we have 1,000 soda straws of steel and concrete piercing the ground near our homes, open space, and rural areas, emitting gases with potential, perhaps inevitable groundwater contamination with very little monitoring. Bad idea 2. And that bad idea 1 is based on the fact of the high reliance on natural gas in the city of Boulder. Bad idea 2. So who is going to get the best price on gas or wind? The huge bulk buyer, Xcel, or the tiny buyer, Boulder? Bad idea 3. So what happens if the natural gas approach collapses due to unforeseen or foreseen but not yet proven environmental impacts. And don't forget that all these sources of energy have negative potential impacts. Coal has mines, groundwater, surface impact, power plant emissions, and transportation emissions. Gas requires fracking, emissions from drilling and accidents, power plant emissions. Gas is not a totally free ticket. Hydro, dam, water pipe construction, stream modification, and impacts to aquatic migration, connection, inundation, and sedimentation. Wind, bird and bat mortality. More details on that later. Solar, you've got to produce materials from mining and manufacturing, and there's emissions associated with that. And ultimately, you can have disposal of solar panels. And biomass depends on whether it is waste or primary sources like agriculture. In spite of the municipalization proponents' cries of, "We tried to change Xcel and PUC, but they just wouldn't listen to us," I am unconvinced. Plan B would to lobby legislators, Colorado Public Utilities, and the people of Colorado with our great ideas. All we need to do is make a 1.5% improvement statewide, and we will equal the Boulder Municipalization boondoggle. Here is an example of what the true costs of municipalization are estimated to be. How about just the startup cost? The startup costs alone are estimated to be $3.5 or $3.8 million. This could be the same as a $2,000 solar incentive for 17,400 homes in Boulder. That could zero out net electric use for over 40% of Boulder's homes. For reference, here's an estimate of what the relative costs are for each energy source. Coal is about 92% of the cost of wind, 58% of the cost of natural gas, and 28% of the cost of solar. Remember that natural gas, wind, and solar have their environmental costs as well as the environmental costs of coal. Also remember that neither Xcel nor Boulder plan to have more than 5% solar use, and both of them plan to use coal. Here is one estimate of the bird and bat mortality from wind. The American Bird Conservancy estimates that now there's somewhere between 100,000 to 440,000 birds killed per year. If 20% of the nation's electricity comes from wind power by 2030, they estimate that there will be at least 1 million birds per year killed by wind. And remember, that's a big part of what Boulder plans to use. So Boulder plans to use wind and natural gas, and both of those have their consequences. And neither Boulder nor Xcel are using a very high percentage of solar. So, you really have to ask yourself, who do you want running your electric resources? Do you want somebody who's doing a very reasonable job of progressively improving their mix of sources versus Boulder that is going to have a very limited source and have to compete with a much larger buyer? Once again, at best, Boulder will achieve a statistically non-significant victory. Here is the big footprint we should be working on, not the costly, symbolic, but insignificant outcome of Boulder municipalization. No significant outcome. At what cost? The cost is poorly defined. And would you agree to buy a car when the seller hasn't given you a price? That is not sanity, is it? Vanity.